The 18th century, known as the Age of Enlightenment, was a time when reason began to eclipse reverence, and the world, once veiled in myth, was dissected with precision. Across Europe, naturalists categorized life with Linnaean taxonomy, mapping the living world not to protect it, but to possess it. Vast empires stretched their sails across oceans, redrawing coastlines with each voyage and planting flags on islands whose ecosystems trembled at first contact. Enlightenment thinkers proclaimed the supremacy of man, declaring nature a mechanism to be studied, controlled, and mastered. Yet in this pursuit of knowledge, a silence was spreading, of birds vanishing from island skies and whales fleeing harpoons in seas that once belonged only to them. The Rhytina, a gentle sea cow of the Bering coasts, was named, hunted, and gone within 3 decades of its discovery. The wild was still vast, but already thinning, its losses hidden beneath the triumphs of cartography and conquest. And while salons in Paris debated liberty and science, the fragile kingdoms of coral, feathers, and blubber were collapsing unnoticed. It was an age that illuminated the world, even as it cast deeper shadows over the natural one.
Imber's petrel is an extinct seabird of gadfly petrel from the Chatham Islands, close to New Zealand. The first remains were collected in 1947, but it was not until 1967 when British ornithologist William Richard Postlebourne considered it as undescribed and extinct species which is distinctive from other gadfly petrels bred on the Chatham Islands. It became apparently extinct when the first Europeans colonized the islands and their cats preyed on the breeding seabirds. Mascarene reed cormorant was a now extinct subspecies of the long-tailed cormorant, once native to the islands of Mauritius and Réunion in the Indian Ocean. Believed to have vanished in the 18th century, this bird likely fell victim to overhunting, habitat destruction, and the introduction of invasive predators by European settlers. Smaller and perhaps more insular in its habits than its mainland relatives, it left behind little more than historical accounts and subfossil remains. The Guadeloupe parakeet is a hypothetical extinct species of parrot believed to have been endemic to the island of Guadeloupe in the Lesser Antilles. Its existence is based solely on an 18th-century account by Jean-Baptiste Labat, who described a small, mostly green parrot with red feathers on its head and a white bill. No physical remains or specimens have ever been found, making its classification highly uncertain and its species status speculative. If it did exist, it likely went extinct by the late 18th century, lost before it could be scientifically documented. The gadfly petrels are a diverse genus of about 35 seabird species known for their agile, weaving flight, which inspired their name. Their short, strong bills and twisted intestines are specialized for feeding on soft-bodied marine prey with unique biochemistries. With intricate wing and facial markings likely aiding in species recognition, these pelagic birds return to island colonies to nest, laying a single egg in burrows or on open ground, typically under the cover of night. While many species have wide ranges, most are restricted to a single ocean basin, with notable diversity and endemism in the New Zealand region. The Rodriguez rail was a flightless bird endemic to the island of Rodriguez in the Indian Ocean, measuring about 35 centimeters and likely weighing at least 500 grams. It had gray plumage, red legs and beak, and a red bare patch around its eyes. Sexual dimorphism may have existed, particularly in bill shape and size. This rail likely fed opportunistically on tortoise eggs, invertebrates and possibly hatchlings, fattening itself seasonally and nesting in well-concealed locations. Though it survived the introduction of rats, the arrival of cats around 1720, combined with hunting, led to its extinction within a few decades, marking yet another loss in the heavily impacted mascarene fauna. The Rodriguez scops owl was an insular owl species endemic to Rodriguez Island, notable for its evolved gigantism, being twice the size and 4 times the weight of its oriental scops owl ancestor. It lived mainly in trees, hunted small birds and lizards and vocalized at night when the weather was fair, as described by Taffret. Like many island species, it was vulnerable to ecological disruption, and likely succumbed to habitat changes and predation after human settlement and the arrival of invasive rats. The Rodriguez starling was a large, mostly white bird with black wings and a yellow bill, known for its melodious and varied song. It inhabited the islets off Rodriguez, likely to avoid predators and feed on seabird eggs and the remains of dead tortoises and turtles. Anatomical features, such as strong jaw muscles and a robust mandible, suggest it foraged by tearing or prying objects apart, possibly using its wedge-shaped bill to access food. The species became extinct by the mid-18th century, likely due to invasive rats and habitat destruction following human settlement. The Rodriguez pigeon was a slate-gray, tame bird about the size of a tambourine dove, once endemic to Rodriguez Island. It was known for its confiding behavior, often gathering in large numbers around humans to feed on scraps like melon seeds. Although it foraged on the main island, it only nested on nearby islets, likely to avoid predation by invasive rats. The species went extinct by the mid-18th century, once rats reached those islets and destroyed its remaining breeding grounds. The Rodriguez night heron was a robust, sexually dimorphic bird about 60 centimeters long, with strong legs adapted for a terrestrial lifestyle and reduced flight abilities, likely feeding on geckos, snails, and possibly giant tortoise eggs. Its plumage is uncertain, but it may have retained juvenile-like coloration into adulthood, and it was notably tame and unafraid of humans. Although still capable of weak flight, it was considered behaviorally flightless, with adaptations for running and hunting on land in the island's forest habitat. Once fluttering through the dense ebony forests of Mauritius, Mauritius wood pigeon was a quiet emblem of the island's forgotten wilderness. Cloaked in soft plumage and scarcely studied before its disappearance, this elusive pigeon faded into silence sometime in the 18th century. Its extinction, like so many others of that era, came not with thunder but with the hush of a world changing too fast for its native life to endure. Endemic to the vanished stillness of Mauritius's coastal lowlands, Mauritius turtle dove lived a gentle life, its presence scarcely noted until it was gone. Believed to have disappeared in the 18th century, it fell victim to the steady advance of invasive predators and the unraveling of its fragile habitat. Unlike more storied losses, its name lingered only in scientific obscurity, a quiet testament to the unnoticed cost of colonial expansion. In the silence it left behind, the island's chorus grew thinner, one voice less in nature's once rich harmony. Clad in deep blue with crimson beak and legs, the Réunion swamp hen once roamed the high plateaus of Plaine de Caffres, a reluctant flyer better known for its swift stride through mountain mist. Though early accounts disagreed on its size, it was likely comparable to the takahe, sturdy and terrestrial, nesting in grasses near alpine pools. Hunted easily with sticks or stones and later besieged by cats and rats, it quietly vanished by the mid-18th century, the last whispers of its kind fading into the cloud-covered uplands. Like so many birds of the mascarenes, it was both adapted and betrayed by its island sanctuary. Once brightening the forests of Réunion with flashes of emerald and scarlet, the Réunion parakeet was a slender, long-tailed parrot known for its elegance and rarity. Unlike its surviving Mauritian relative, this subspecies disappeared by the late 18th century, likely hunted and displaced as the island's native woodlands gave way to colonial development. Though little was recorded beyond its vivid plumage and graceful flight, its loss marked another thread unraveled from Réunion's vibrant avian tapestry. In its silence, the canopy it once adorned grew a little duller, a little emptier. Tall-shelled and slow-moving, saddle-backed Mauritius giant tortoise once roamed Mauritius in great numbers, lifting its long neck to browse the low branches of forest trees. As the ancestral giant tortoise of the Mascarenes, it likely drifted from island to island, shaping distant populations before retreating into extinction. Settlers found it tame and plentiful, traits that sealed its fate as it was slaughtered for meat, oil, and ease. With eggs trampled or eaten by pigs, rats, and cats, its last refuge on outer islets crumbled by the 1,730 years. What remains today are bones and faint engravings, echoes of a quiet grazer that once helped shape an island's wild rhythm. Rounded and low-shelled also once grazed peacefully across Mauritius, feeding on fallen fruit, leaves and grass in the forest shade. It was the gentle counterpart to its saddle-backed sister, its jaws marked by 3 ridges, perhaps a unique adaptation to its diet. Like so many island species, it showed no fear of humans, which led to its swift destruction at the hands of early settlers and their hungry animals. By the early 18th century, it had vanished entirely, leaving behind only stories, shells, and a silence where slow footsteps once shaped the land. The Lesser Antillean macaw was a large, vividly colored parrot with red plumage, yellow and blue wings, and an entirely red tail, closely resembling the scarlet macaw but likely smaller. It lived across the Guadeloupe archipelago, feeding on berries and even the toxic manchineel fruit, nesting in tree hollows and forming strong lifelong pair bonds. Described as dignified, social, and fearless, it was easily hunted by both indigenous peoples and European settlers, who prized it for food and feathers. Disease, habitat disturbance and overhunting led to its rapid decline. Coronanth brachythersus was a flowering plant species in the Rubiaceae family, endemic to Cameroon. It grew in lowland tropical rainforests, an ecosystem now heavily threatened by deforestation. The species has not been seen in the wild for decades despite targeted searches, suggesting it may be extinct. It is currently listed as extinct in the wild. The North Atlantic population of the gray whale, once widespread along the European and North American coasts, was driven to extinction between the 18th century. Historical records and subfossil remains suggest that these whales migrated seasonally along the Atlantic coastlines, much like their still extant Pacific relatives. Their disappearance coincided with the rise of early commercial whaling in Europe, particularly by Basque whalers in the Bay of Biscay as early as the 11th century. This intensive hunting targeted coastal whale species, which were slow-moving and often calved near shore, making them easy prey. The lack of remote refuges and their predictable migratory routes made them especially vulnerable. Environmental shifts and the Little Ice Age may have added stress, but overexploitation remains the dominant cause of their extinction. The Rodriguez parrot was the largest parrot species on Rodriguez Island, characterized by a large head, long tail and uniformly green plumage. Its skeletal features were unique among mascarene parrots, including upward-facing nostrils and a large head relative to its body, resembling the great-billed parrot but with a longer tail. The species was driven to extinction by a combination of habitat destruction from deforestation, hunting by humans, and predation by invasive rats and possibly cats. The Rodriguez solitaire was a large, flightless bird endemic to the young island of Rodriguez. Although closely related to the dodo, it was not a direct descendant, with both species evolving independently from separate pigeon ancestors about 20 million years ago. The solitaire stood about 90 centimeters tall, with males larger than females, featuring long legs, a long neck, gray-brown plumage and a hooked beak marked by a distinctive black band. It was highly territorial and used large bony knobs on its wrists as weapons during fights, which also allowed it to produce loud, low-frequency sounds through wing movements. Unlike the dodo, its wings were less reduced and retained strong musculature, aiding both in combat and communication. The bird survived longer than the dodo due to Rodriguez's late human settlement but eventually succumbed to hunting, habitat loss, and invasive predators after the late 1,600 years. Steller's sea cow was a massive marine mammal, growing up to 9 meters long and weighing around 10 tons, making it one of the largest mammals of the Holocene. It had thick skin and blubber to survive the cold Bering Sea, was toothless but used stiff bristles and keratinous plates to feed on kelp. Unlike other sirenians, it was positively buoyant and could not fully submerge. The sea cow was social, lived in family groups, and showed parental care, with mating and calving occurring seasonally. It fed mainly on canopy kelp near the water surface, moving slowly and anchoring itself against strong waves with its forelimbs. Its natural predators may have included orcas and sharks, though its size and habitat offered some protection. Human hunting after its discovery in the 18th century rapidly drove it to extinction within 27 years, with the last individuals disappearing by the late 1,700 years. Steller's sea cow played an important ecological role by shaping kelp forest dynamics, helping maintain their productivity and resilience. Its extinction likely disrupted these ecosystems long before modern environmental pressures emerged. The island of Réunion formed 2 to 3 million years ago and developed a unique ecosystem with birds, reptiles, and bats. The Réunion ibis was long thought to be related to the dodo but was actually an ibis, Thresciornis solitarius, about 65 centimeters long with a short beak and reduced flight ability. This mostly white bird with glossy black plumes lived mainly in forests, feeding on invertebrates in soft soil. It was heavily hunted in the 1,600 years and also suffered from predation by introduced mammals like cats and pigs, making it rare. The last confirmed sighting was in the early 1,700 years, and it likely went extinct soon after. The mascarene gray parakeet was a distinctive gray, long-tailed bird with a broad beak exhibiting adaptations for a largely terrestrial lifestyle and feeding on local palm fruits. It was easily hunted due to its tame behavior, especially during the months when it fattened on wild seeds, making it a favored food source for early visitors. Alongside habitat loss from deforestation and being considered a crop pest, intensive hunting led to its decline, with the last reports on Réunion dating to 1732 and on Mauritius to the late 1764. Ancient Polydamas swallowtail was an extinct subspecies of swallowtail butterfly, known only from a 1770 drawing by British entomologist Drew Drury and endemic to Antigua. It is currently listed as extinct, though some question whether it truly existed due to taxonomic errors in Drury's work. The butterfly was described as having black wings with a distinctive row of green spots on both forewings and hind wings. Its existence remains uncertain, highlighting challenges in historical species identification. An unnamed species of swamp hen once inhabited the island of Mahé in the Seychelles, adding to the unique avian diversity of the archipelago. Like other swamp hens, it likely thrived in wetland habitats, feeding on aquatic plants and small invertebrates. This bird probably exhibited limited flight ability, making it vulnerable to predators introduced by humans. The Raiatea parakeet measured about 25 centimeters long and had distinctive brown, olive, and grayish-blue plumage with orange-red eyes in adults. It was endemic to Raiatea, an island in the Society Islands, and likely lived in forest habitats. The species showed no sexual dimorphism between males and females. It probably went extinct soon after its discovery in 1773, mainly due to habitat destruction, hunting, and introduced invasive species. The Tana ground dove is known only from 2 lost specimens, with a detailed sketch of a female made by George Forster during James Cook's 1774 voyage, now held at the Natural History Museum in London. Forster noted the dove had eaten wild nutmeg, a tree common but easily overlooked on Tana Island. The species likely went extinct by the late 18th century, probably due to introduced rats, but the exact cause and date remain unknown. John Latham described Raimundo starling as about 30 centimeters long, with a reddish pearl-colored, notched bill, rufous-brown plumage, dusky-edged quills and a rounded dusky tail. James Greenway's translation of Forster's notes adds details of dusky head markings, reddish-brown feather edges, ochraceous underparts, dark yellow iris, and a bifid, ciliated tongue. Forster observed the bird's soft, fluting voice and noted it lived in thickets within the valleys of its island habitat. The Tongatapu rail was a species of bird in the family Rallidae. It was apparently native to the island of Tongatapu in the Kingdom of Tonga, in Polynesia in the southwest Pacific Ocean. It is known only from brief descriptions of a specimen, now lost, collected from Tongatapu in 1777 in the course of James Cook's third voyage to the Pacific, and from a contemporary illustration by George Forster. The Moorea sandpiper was an extinct wader endemic to Moorea in French Polynesia, locally known as Tete. 2 specimens were collected during Captain Cook's third voyage in 1777, but both have since disappeared, with the species going extinct in the 18th century. Contemporary illustrations depict it as a lighter brown bird with distinctive rusty eye rings and white wing bars, differing somewhat from its close relative, the Tahiti sandpiper. The Tahiti sandpiper was a small, plain brown bird about 18 centimeters long, with distinctive white wing patches and a pale rusty ring around its dark brown eye. Its bill was thin and pointed, more like that of an insect-eating bird than a typical wader, and it had greenish-pale straw-colored legs with unwebbed toes. Known from a few 18th-century specimens and paintings, it closely resembled the Moorea sandpiper, though differences in wing and head coloration suggest they might be separate species or variants. The Martinique Amazon is a hypothetical extinct parrot species believed to have lived on Martinique, closely related to the red-necked Amazon of nearby Dominica. It is known only from historical descriptions, notably by Jean-Baptiste Labat in 1742, who noted its mostly green plumage with a slate-colored head and some red markings. The species likely disappeared due to habitat loss as the island was cleared for agriculture and has not been recorded since 1722. The Guadeloupe Amazon is another hypothetical extinct parrot and believed to be closely related to the imperial Amazon of Dominica. Described as strikingly violet or slate-colored with iridescent feathers and a distinctive ruff of feathers around its neck, it fed on fruits and nuts and exhibited shared parental care. This parrot had become rare due to habitat destruction and hunting by French settlers, ultimately vanishing from the island. The Tahiti crake is an extinct species of bird in the family Rallidae. It was endemic to Tahiti. It was discovered and painted by George Forster during the second Cook voyage. John Frederick Miller copied Forster's painting and published it with some changes in his work Icones Animalium et Plantarum in 1784. Miller coined the binomial name Rallus nigra. It probably went extinct in about 1800 from introduced predators. The white swamp hen, similar in size to the Australasian swamp hen, had notably short wings and a unique coloration that changed from black in chicks to bluish-gray and eventually white in adults. Its physical traits, including robust legs and short toes, suggest it was becoming flightless, a trait common among island birds. Historical accounts describe the bird as tame and easily hunted due to its limited ability to fly, with sailors catching them effortlessly using sticks. The white plumage likely resulted from progressive graying rather than albinism, a rare but inheritable pigment loss. Despite once being common on Lord Howe Island, the white swamp hen vanished within decades of human arrival, succumbing to hunting and human impact long before predators arrived. The Amsterdam widgeon was a small, flightless duck endemic to Isle Amsterdam, known only from bones and driven to extinction likely by sealers and introduced rats. Its strong legs and reduced wings indicate it was adapted to a terrestrial lifestyle, drinking little seawater and living away from the coast. The species was first scientifically identified from bones found in the mid-20th century, revealing its close relation to widgeons but with unique adaptations. The oceanic eclectus was an extinct parrot species native to Tonga, Vanuatu, and possibly Fiji, closely related to the modern eclectus parrot but with proportionally smaller wings. Fossil remains discovered in the late 20th century revealed a well-documented skeletal record from multiple islands. The species likely became extinct around 3,000 years ago due to human activities, such as habitat destruction and introduced species. A 1793 sketch from Vavayu may depict a surviving individual, suggesting it persisted into historic times on some islands. The Vavayu rail was a flightless bird species native to the Vavayu Islands in Tonga. Known only from subfossil remains, it was part of the diverse rail family adapted to island life. Like many island rails, it likely became extinct due to human settlement and the introduction of predators such as rats and cats. Its extinction reflects the fragile nature of island ecosystems and the impact of invasive species on native wildlife. The blaubok was the smallest member of its genus, standing about 110 centimeters tall at the shoulder, with a uniform bluish-gray coat and a lighter belly. It differed from its close relatives, the roan and sable antelopes, by its shorter ears, thinner and shorter horns, and the absence of the distinctive black and white facial markings. This herbivore was primarily a selective grazer, inhabiting open grasslands in southwestern South Africa. Fossil evidence shows that it once had a wider range, but habitat loss and geographic barriers fragmented its populations. The blaubok formed groups of around 20 individuals and likely undertook seasonal migrations between the wetter western and eastern Cape to follow grass availability. Its extinction was driven by a combination of factors, including climate-driven habitat changes after the last ice age, competition with livestock, and heavy hunting pressure by European settlers in the 18th century. The last wild individual was probably killed around 1799, making the blaubok the first large African mammal species known to go extinct in modern history. Despite low genetic diversity from a small pre-colonial population, it had survived past climate fluctuations until human impacts sealed its fate.